Hey guys, welcome back. It's another edition of Off Topic with Greg and I. This is the June edition. So today our topic is we're about halfway through the year. So how's our collecting strategy going, and how has it changed, and what do we look forward to kind of for the second half of the year from a collecting perspective? So we talked about this in what, January? We talked
No,
about our December maybe.
it was December. It was
Our
one of our
list.
first videos. Yeah.
I think that was, yeah. So we talked about our list of cards. So we broke it out into three tiers each. And I know I fundamentally changed my plan in January. So I went from having my 15 cards, 5 cards in each tier for 3 tiers. I went to 1 card a month, and I made a list of the cards I've purchased so far month by month. And I also have a list of other stuff I purchased off that wasn't on my list. And I'm not sticking to anything. I mean, some of the cards on my list, on my original list, ended up on my secondary list. And I bought some from the original list I bought, then removed it from the list, which doesn't even make sense to me, really. And then I bought some other stuff too. So from a card purchasing perspective this year and collection growth perspective, I give myself like a B plus, A minus. From a sticking to my plan perspective, a solid low F, like a PSA 1 run over ripped.
Right. Like a PSA 1 MK.
Yes.
But the thing about it is like you last year didn't have a list. And then in December, which is where we're comparing ourselves here halfway through the year from December, you were a strong believer in lists, and you said the list is the way to go. It's going to allow me to be more focused. I mean, I almost feel like we should pull some clips of some of the things that you said.
Right. I know.
And then now you said the other day when we had Mr. Petty on, you said lists are actually harmful. Like lists make it worse. So I mean, you literally have completely went from A to Z back to A.
Mm-hmm. So I did.
You just
I did.
acknowledge that, yes.
100%. And one of the things that Mike Petty said that I 100% agree with, excuse me, I'm not sick. I ran for the
It's
first
okay.
time
I
in
don't
like
think
a
I'll
year,
catch it.
which
I
is
won't catch
dumb. Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, I'll wear a mask. Get some of these COVID masks still. So well, one of the things that Petty said that I 100% agree with is having a refined list is bad. Having a large kind of all-encompassing list is good. And I think that is where I am kind of leaning towards is if I make a list of like 100 cards that I want, and as I kind of, for lack of a better way of saying it, discover new things, right? Like there was not a whole lot, there wasn't really, other than some T206 stuff, there was nothing, pre 1930s on my original list, other than some T206 and then the T205 Mathewson, which is pretty iconic, right? So,
Okay.
so what I could do, I think, to make it better, if I make a list of all the cards, that way I could say, oh yeah, here's the ones I'm looking for. Because to me, if I don't have a list, it's just too unfocused. But if I make a longer list and then say, well, at the time I wrote the list, this specific card seemed interesting to me, but now my interests in the hobby might shift a little bit. I could pull those off the list and replace them with something else. So I'll have a larger list to pick from versus having a very refined list saying 1 a month, that's it. These are the cards I'm buying this year, because then I run into this issue where I have to make a separate list of all the stuff that I bought that's not on the list.
So let's stop instead of just talking about the list. I'm gonna share my screen if you're cool with that.
Please
And
do.
I actually have the list queued up here.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So let's see here. I have the list. So there we go. So I'm gonna go ahead and start us off at the first section, which was your third tier list. These were the third tier cards, so the least expensive of the 15.
Yes.
Now, of these 5 cards, I have a couple questions for you. So, if you're listening in at home, the cards on the screen are the 54 Red Heart Mickey Mantle, the 33 Gaudy Hack Wilson, the T205 Christy Mathewson, the 64 Tops Stand Up Mickey Mantle, and the 57 Tops Mickey Mantle. So let me ask you, first off, before you say anything, do you remember that these 5 cards were on the original list?
Yes.
Okay. So of these 5 cards, how many of them have you added to the collection, and how many of these cards are no longer on the list?
Good question. And I have one answer that encompasses both. I added the 57 Tops Mantle. That's on the list. I added that to the collection because my wife needed it for her Mickey Mantle collection. And I think it's fair, as being a married couple, we share our
Yeah,
collections.
I think that's fair.
And all the rest came off the list.
Okay, so let's back up. Now, if you haven't seen Darren's pickups from the Denver Card Show video, I believe is where you showed
Yes.
this mantle, picked up a really nice 57 Tops mantle. Check out that video. So you're telling me that you've got this, you just said to me a second ago that you're a believer in a bigger list, not a smaller list, but a bigger list. And 50 of the 15 cards that you were most interested in a little over 6 months ago, you now, even though it's a bigger list, 4 of these cards on the screen right now, the 54 Red Heart Mantle, the 33 Gaudy Hack Wilson, the T205 Christy Mathewson, and the 64 Top Stand Up Mickey Mantle are no longer on the bigger list. Is that correct?
No. So they came off when I redid my list in this is from December. So in January, when I changed it, and I did
That
one a
didn't
month.
take long.
Yeah. All of these fell off my 12 cards over 12-month concept.
I see. Okay.
If I haven't built my bigger list yet, when I do, all 4 of those will be on the bigger list.
Okay. So you still want the cards,
Yes.
but you don't anticipate them being part of 2024.
Probably not, unless I finish my 12 before the end of the year, and I'm on pace to finish it in August. So they
Right.
might pop back on. Who knows? But
Okay.
for the 12 cards I refocused on, none of those 5 are on the refocused list.
Now,
But there's still a want, and I picked up one of them.
okay. So is it fair to say that, because we're, less than 60 days from the National, is it fair to say at the National, none of these cards will be targets?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So let's look at my third tier then. And let's see how I'm doing. Okay. So I've got the 57 Tops Don Drysdale.
There you go.
The 61 Tops Juan Marichal, the 1950 Bowman Autogram, the T206 Frank Chance with the orange back, or yellowish orange back, and then the T206 Eddie Collins. Now, I can say that I have purchased the 1950 Bowman Autogram.
Yep.
And I have purchased the T206 Frank Chance. I had 57 Tops Don Drysdale I bought in a 5, and when I got it, I wasn't feeling it, so I unloaded it. Okay. So I had 3 of the 5. I now have 2 of the 5, and I would say I still have a lot of interest in the 3 that I haven't added. They're not at the top of my list, but they're definitely, I wouldn't be shocked if I came home with any of the 3 from the National.
Nice. So on the Don Drysdale, you didn't like the one that you sold for me at the show. I say, if you wanted that one, I would have given you a deal on it.
Well, I actually, the one that I had for about 3 days.
Okay.
Somebody contacted me through email. I did a private deal for it. It was a good price. It looked like a clean card, but when I got it, the top bottom centering was off enough that it just kind of bugged me.
Mm.
And right now, my number one focus is there are a few big cards that I'm looking to hopefully land at the National in Cleveland, and so I'm like, well, I think that I have to kind of these mid to low tier cards. I can't start picking those off. I mean, I could probably find a Don Drysdale right now or a Juan Marichal right now that would meet my needs. The Eddie Collins is a much harder card to find
Yep.
in the condition and the price that I want.
Mm-hmm.
The other two, I'm sure I could probably find one on one of the auction sites, this week if I really wanted.
Right.
But I'd rather just kind of keep that money in the account to hopefully get a bigger card, a higher tier card here coming up.
And what you just said is why I had to make a list, because that really was kind of the basis of the foundation of why I needed a list to begin with. It was last year I didn't really have a list and I bought a lot of different cards. And then at the end of the year, that's where I was like, well, if I had a list, I could have, instead of buying, 30 cards over the year, I could have purchased 12 and had some bigger cards.
Yeah.
And that's why I did the list in the first place. So I totally understand don't focus on the lower part of the list, because you want to save that money to go towards the higher part of the list.
Yeah. All right. So let's keep moving. Let's go to your tier 2. Oh, that's
Your
my
tier
tier
two.
2.
Yep.
Okay. So now we've got 5 cards on my second tier. They're the 55 tops Jackie Robinson, the 72 tops Julius Erving, the 1955 top Sandy Koufax, the 33 Gaudy Rogers Hornsby, and the 33 Gaudy Mel Ott with the green background. And the Rogers Hornsby is the yellow background where he's fielding. So I have since purchased the 55 tops Jackie Robinson, and I have purchased the 33 Gaudy Rogers Hornsby. You were standing next to me as I did it.
Yes, I was.
I have not picked up the other 3. I would say that I am still definitely in the market for all 3.
Okay.
I would be very open to potentially buying one of those 3 at the National. If I were to rank them, that's a little bit harder. Definitely still in the market for them. I really like that Mel Ott card, and living, in Northern California near the Giants and stuff.
Mhm.
There was a lot of Mel Ott stuff over the years. So, but I just think that picture's so awesome.
I agree.
I don't know. The Koufax has become a really expensive card. It's probably the most expensive of the 3. I mean, all 3 of them are definitely on the list still. They're not. If you were to say what card do you want most right now, none of them are on the top 2 or 3.
Sure.
But they're all 3 in the top 30.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that top 30. I like what I hear.
I know.
List.
Oh yeah,
All
my
right.
list is definitely grown. So just to review, I've picked up 4 of the 10 that we've seen so far for me, and there are 6 that are missing. None of them have fallen off my list.
Okay.
But they might be a little bit lower than they were in December when we originally talked about it.
Yeah,
Right?
and that happens, right? Your interests kind of shift a little bit, or the price of the card goes up a lot before you buy it. So it becomes, for example, maybe the Koufax, like you really wanted the card, but the price has gone up 25%. Do you still want it that bad at that price point?
Yeah, when I went to Strongsville, I had about 10 cards that I had comped out that I was really targeting as my focus. And then if none of those worked out, then I was going to go to other stuff. And if I go back really quickly, I already had the autogram. I already had the Frank Chance. The Eddie Collins was not one of the 10. So the only one of those 10, I already had the Jackie Robinson. The only one of the 10 cards that we've looked at so far that was in my top 10 target list for Strongsville, again, that was a couple months ago, was the Hornsby, which is one of the cards I came home with. So
nice.
All right, let's look now at your second tier. So we've got the 49 leaf Joe DiMaggio, the 49 leaf Ted Williams, the 53 tops Jackie Robinson, the 54 Dandy Mickey Mantle, and the 54 Bowman Mickey Mantle. So where do we stand on these 5 cards?
Well, now I tie you because after my second tier, I have a total of 4. I had the
Okay.
57 Mantle in tier 1, but then in tier 2, I picked up the 49 leaf DiMaggio. I picked up the 53 tops Jackie Robinson from Don, and I picked up the 54 Bowman Mickey Mantle.
Now, where did you pick up the 54 Bowman Mantle at?
Mr. eBay.
Okay. And that's where the 49 leaf DiMaggio came from?
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk then about the 2 you haven't picked up. So the 49 leaf Ted Williams, is that still on the list?
Absolutely. I love
Okay.
that card. I just knowing that I shifted my focus a little bit to focus more on player this year. My players were Jackie Robinson, Lou Gehrig, and Joe DiMaggio. I just didn't pick up that Williams, but that's absolutely when I was actually at the Denver show. Ash's table had like 1 or 2 of those, and I was very tempted
Hmm.
to get one, but I decided I should just hold off and go for the kind of the big ones I want at the national and wait and get this one maybe later in the year.
So you wouldn't be shocked if you came home from the National with the Leaf Williams?
Possibly,
Okay.
if I can't find, I will say this: out of the cards on my list from these 3 tier targets, the first runner up, if there's something from the new list that I can't get,
Hmm.
I think that Ted Williams would be my runner up card.
Yeah. It's a beautiful card. I love the whole set, frankly. Now
Mhm.
the 54 Dandy Mickey Mantle, is that still on the 2024 target list?
Possibly. It's definitely on my bigger list. It's not on my 12 cards for 12-month list though. So I think I definitely want that card in the collection,
Yeah.
but it's gone up a little bit since December in price, and I'm just trying to balance the cards I'm really passionate about picking up with budget.
Okay. So so just to review, let's go back here a little bit. So the on your 3rd tier list, the Red Heart Mantle, the Hack Wilson Gowdy, the T205 Mathewson, the Stand Up Mantle, those are all on the larger list, but not on the imminent list.
Right.
And the Ted Williams is an outlier of the imminent list.
Yes.
And the Dandy Mantle is not on the imminent list, but still on the larger list.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So anything else about no, okay. Let's
No,
keep
I
going.
mean, I think based on the tiers so far in December, if you had asked me who would I want, who's my primary person to collect in 2024, I probably would have said Mickey Mantle,
Hmm.
and I decided obviously that I like Mickey Mantle, but he wouldn't be one of the top 3 people that I'm gonna collect this year.
Well, partly because then your wife tries to make claim to the
She'll take
mantle.
them all. Yeah,
Right. But if it's a DiMaggio, she's not a DiMaggio collector
correct,
or a Garrett collector or a Jackie Robinson collector.
correct.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to our top tier now. So I've got my top tier goal list, which includes the 54 tops Ernie Banks. That is, again, I've mentioned many times, I've got 3 cards that have always been my 3 quote unquote vintage grails literally since about 1990. And they are the Ernie Banks 54 tops rookie card, the 48 Bowman Yogi Berra. Now, other cards on the screen right now are the 33 Gowdy Sport Kings Bobby Jones, the T206 Ty Cobb Bat on Shoulder, and the 48 Leaf Warren Spahn. Now, I did pick up the 48 Leaf Warren Spahn at the Strongsville show. You were
I
standing
was
with
standing
me
there
as I
too.
did that one. Yep, for that
Yeah.
one as well. I've not picked up the other 4. Now, I'll say that as much as I love the Gowdy Bobby Jones, it's a really expensive card. It's like in a one, that card's over $1,000.
Hmm.
Um, I do love golf cards, and I have picked up a lot of golf cards over the last 12 months. And that is sort of like, in my opinion, the ultimate golf card.
Yep.
I would say that one has dropped a little bit on my list. So I would say that one, I would be surprised if I came home with that one from the National, uh, because it's probably even just outside of my top 30 list right now. But it's definitely on my overall eventual list. Um, the Ty Cobb, I'm struggling to be able to afford it. Even in like a 1.5, it's a really expensive card, and a lot of the times, you know, I don't mind having a 1.5, but there are certain characteristics it can't have. It can have a crease. It can have severely rounded corners would be fine, but it can't have anything distracting on it. And most of them that are 1.5s or ones or even a lot of twos are going to have something severely wrong with it.
Yeah.
So
Like the crease across his face or something.
yeah, and I would just assume just keep waiting than
Hmm.
to force that. So I would love to come home with the Banks, the Barra, or the Ty Cobb from, if in December when we do our year end, how'd we do? I'm sure we'll do that.
Yep.
And then probably release our list for the following year. I would think that would just be fun.
Sure.
I would think that the Banks, the Barra, or the Cobb, I really hope that at least one of those has been purchased. That's
Yep.
sort of a goal by the end of the year, is to land one of those three.
That would be awesome. Those are all super iconic. They're all sweet cars. It'd be awesome to pick one of those up.
Yeah, and the Leaf Spawn is. I'm just noticing now. It's funny. We had called them the 49s, and then here we have it as the 48.
Oh yeah.
But that one, when we went to Strongsville, I didn't even have it on my list because I just assumed that there wouldn't be one that was centered with good registration that was affordable.
Right.
And so I didn't even target it. I'm like, why am I trying to target that? That's a unicorn.
Mhm.
And then the fact that it just fell in my lap at the morning the second day was wild.
Right.
But that's how it works. Like, that's why you have the bigger peripheral lists,
Yes.
right? Is because then when one falls in your lap, you're ready. You're ready.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay, so yeah, so that's where I stand. 1 out of 5 there. So out of the 15 cards in the first 6 months, I have picked up 5 of the 15, which honestly, and the most interesting part is probably the least expensive ones would be the Drysdale and the Marischal. Aren't 2 of them.
Right.
So I've picked up 5 of the 15, and the 2 most affordable cards are still out there.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
yeah, I mean, I would consider the year a total success if I ended the year with 7 or 8 of the 15, and I'm
Makes
at
sense.
5. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That would be a great year.
All right, let's go to your top tier, your gold tier.
All right. So we got the 51 Bowman Mantle, the 34 Gaudi Lou Gehrig. This specific one is the yellow background with the smiling face. The 41 Playball Joe DiMaggio, the 1950 Bowman Jackie Robinson, and the 1952 Topps Jackie Robinson. So out of these 5, I've picked up the 1941 Playball Joe DiMaggio, and I've also picked up the 1950 Bowman Jackie Robinson, and you were standing there when I did.
Yeah, so the 50 Bowman Jackie Robinson that you have is a beautiful card. That was a Strongsville purchase from Ash. And the 41 play ball, that was an eBay, right?
Yes.
And then the other 3 you're working on. Now, let me ask you then, of those other 3, are those other 3 still high on your list?
So the 2 cards that I still need to go get this year that are for me must pickups are the 34 Gaudy Garrett Yellow and the 52 Tops Jackie Robinson.
Okay. So to you, you would consider the year a disappointment if you didn't pick up those two?
No, I think I had an awesome run so far, so I wouldn't say the year is a disappointment. What
Okay.
I would say though is the year would be awesome if I picked those two up.
I like that. Now the mantle, is the mantle still, is that on the 2024 imminent list, or is it just on the overall top 30 list?
It's still on the overall top 30 list, and that's purely price. That card is a cost prohibitive card. So, um, you know, got a lot of stuff going on right now that would make it tough to pick something like that up in the
Okay.
condition that I would want.
Now, when you're looking at a big card, because all three of those cards are pretty big cards,
Mhm.
do you kind of have a range of, yeah, I mean, I know a number is just a number, and occasionally you'll see a 2.5 that looks like a 5. But if you're looking online and you're scrolling and a new one pops up, and there are certain ranges you're not going to really look at. You see the Jackie in a 9, you might glance and go, wow, and then you
Right.
just keep scrolling. If
Yes.
you see it in an authentic, you'd probably go, and you keep scrolling.
Right.
What's the range where you're going to pull it up, full screen it, really kind of look it over? What's kind of the range that you're looking for in that card?
So for the 52 Tops Jackie Robinson, I would say 3 to 5. My
Okay.
preference would be a so I found a bunch of threes that have centering that's acceptable to me. Now, the 52 Tops set in general, especially cards like the Jackie Robinson, centering on those are tough, right? So if I find one that's fairly well centered, I'm good with that. Corners, kind of like you said on a previous card, I don't care really about the corners. I mean, obviously, if they're like super rounded on a 52, it's not great, but it could have soft corners. The big thing for me is that red background. I want it to be snow free and no fish eyes.
Hmm.
So I found some threes that had good centering that had snow on the red. I found some fours that have pretty good centering and no snow on the reds, but they were they were going for what like a 6 would go for, or a 7 for that matter.
Hmm.
Um, so I think ideally, if I could find a 4 that I don't think there's a 3 that's fairly well centered with no snowing. I think that would just be a 4 if it
Hmm.
did.
Hmm.
So I don't think that exists. So if I could find it in a 3, perfect. If not, then a 4. So that's kind of the goal on that one. And then the Gehrig, originally I wanted it in a 4, but in my last pickup video from Monday, I showed the 34 Gaudi Lou Gehrig, the green background, in
Hmm.
a 2.5, where the front of it looks like a 6. And on
Hmm.
the back, there's a tiny bit of paper loss right on the white border. So it's not even really noticeable. I mean, if you look very closely, obviously it is, but from the front of the card, it looks really, really good. And from the back of the card, there's nothing that kind of interferes with like any of the green writing on it, right? So if I could find a 34 Gaudi, the yellow, similar to that, I'd pull the trigger on that for sure. Um, it's tough to find ones like that. Those are they're tougher to find something that looks really good that is graded that low. So my guess is on that one, I'll probably go with a 3, maybe a 4, depending on eye appeal.
Gotcha. And then the 51 Bowman mantle maybe got punted back to next year or the year after, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think just based on where they sit, I think my price range, unless something significant happens, probably a 2.
Hmm. Okay. So, we started out with 15 cards that we were hoping. And again, when we say hoping, I don't think either of us were expecting to get all 15.
Right.
You're now, I guess it would be, you've got 6 of your 15 now. Yeah. Is
Yep,
that right?
that's correct.
So you've got 6 of your 15. You're going to make a hard play at 2 of the cards on the screen now, the 34 yellow Gehrig, the 52 Jackie. Um, so, it's possible you would end up with 8. Who knows what'll happen? Could end up with less, could end up with more.
Mhm.
I think we're both on track for right around half to just over half of what we were hoping for. And to me, that's kind of a win, I think.
I
I
agree.
mean, I don't think that I don't think that when I was talking to you in December, I'm like, oh yeah, Darren's gonna have all of these cards next December.
Right.
Like that didn't seem realistic.
Correct.
Um, and then so I guess the thing now is like, and I got to point something out. Like we've been extremely on topic so far today. I mean,
I
we're
know.
30 minutes into this, and we've been pretty dialed in to
Yes.
what we were intending to talk about. So if anybody wanted to give us, some kudos for that, that would be fine.
Right. And I mean, I could take us on a slight tangent. The fact that
Sure.
I changed my strategy and now I have the list of the 12 cards, one card a month. That one I'm also on track for. But some of the cards from that list that I picked up to kind of keep me on track that weren't on this were the 1940 play ball Joe DiMaggio, the 1934 Gaudy Garrig, the green one. And then I had that Garrig DiMaggio exhibits.
Hmm.
That one that will always be on my list until I get it, but I'm finding that it's incredibly difficult to find one for sale.
Hmm.
So I replaced that on my 12 card for 12-month list with the 1941 double play DiMaggio Keller, and I
Mm,
picked that one up. So
okay.
on my 12 card for 12-month list, I've got 10 of them now, and then the last two are the 34 Gaudy Garrig in yellow and the 52 Tops Jackie Robinson. So I could actually complete that list if I pick up those two cards. But to go off the list, because Mike Petty knows that I can't stick to it,
Right. You
I
need a
had to make a list. I couldn't
regenerating
even remember
list.
them all. So
Okay.
outside of these, some of the bigger pickups this year, not on the list, on any list, were the 51 Burke Ross DiMaggio and the 52 Burke Ross DiMaggio. Did that for my DiMaggio run. Um, it's Strongsville, the 1922 American Caramel Rogers Hornsby, as well as the 1922 American Caramel Walter Johnson.
Hmm.
That card I showed the other day, the 1888 H804, the Oh What a Snap cartoon card.
Hmm.
This next one comes as a big surprise. The 1971 Tops Roberto Clemente in an SGC 7. That was another pickup of the year that wasn't on the list. And then some of the cards from my early African American player list: the 55 Bowman Elston Howard, the 50 Bowman Don Newcomb, and the 51 Tops Redback Monty Irvin.
Hmm.
So those are some additional cards I picked up off the list. But I think this original list, I didn't. I think once I hit January, I didn't really intend on hitting that list as accurately as I was hoping. But when I changed it to the 12 cards for 12 months, I think I actually will get basically all 12 of them this year. So that's I think cool. But that being said, the second part of what we want to talk about is what's next? Where are we going? So let me ask you, once you go after some of these cards on this list, and you mentioned you obviously on your larger list too, where's your focus for the second half of the year? Is it to continue to pursue the cards from this list, or is it to start pursuing some of those, but also pursuing some of the cards from your bigger list of, say, 30, 40, 50?
It's amazing. It's a great question, and I probably don't have a great answer for it. But what happens is the ebbs and flows of collecting, they change so dramatically to me,
Mm,
in such a short period of time, where I'll get really hot on something, and then it's not that I'm not hot on it anymore, but I just kind of pivot to something else. Like, if I go back 3 years, I was heavy into like early 70s basketball, like 71, 72, Wilt Chamberlain, and Lou Alcindor and Oscar Robertson. And then for a while, I was really hot and heavy into football. And I was buying a lot of football stuff. And then I was I was heavy into like 50s and 60s baseball. And I don't know how to describe it, but it's like when I'm looking through for cards, there are sometimes you'll just see a card and it just gives you like this feeling like
Hmm.
that's the thing right now that I want to get that right now.
Hmm.
And there's not really like there's not really like a description as to how I got there. I don't know how I get to those points, but there are times where there's just certain cards and I'm just like, no, that is my focus, and I don't know why.
Hmm.
So it's so hard for me to predict what the second half of this year is going to look like. Um, I do think I will pick up two or three more cards from the lists that we just looked at from the
Hmm.
15. But there are a handful of cards that weren't really even on my radar um, a few months ago
Hmm.
that now are like very much on my radar.
Okay.
And so I don't know if that's I don't know why, and I don't know if they'll stay there, you know. Um, the hard part for me, and I think it's the thing that we all talk about all the time is, you know, there are some big cards that I want. And I could go to and here's a perfect example of that kind of decision making.
Hmm.
I was with you at Strongsville, and and I think I mentioned this on one of the other times we did this, but I looked at with you even I looked at it like twice, 2, 3 times, and you looked at it once. A T206 Napa Lajoie portrait,
Yes.
and it was in a 4, and it was the guy was asking $2,000,
Yes.
and it was a fabulous card, and I ended up getting a 1950 and 52 Sammy Baugh, a 33 yellow back fielding Rogers Hornsby, and a T206 portrait Rube Marquard. And I got those 4 cards all, and the fifth, I got the Warren Spahn. I
Yes.
got all 5 of those cards for less than the Lajoie.
Right.
And I would rather have those 5 cards than the Lajoie.
Yeah.
But then there are times where I'm like, if I keep buying these $200, $300, $400 cards or $100 cards or a bunch of $50 cards, I'm never going to get the big card like, you know, like that Ty Cobb.
Hmm.
You know, I'm never going to get the Ty Cobb if I keep buying, you know, the Sammy Baugh cards and the second year Bart Starr and the second year John Unitas. Like, I'll never be. You can't fill up the tank fast enough
Right.
to get to the point where you could acquire that. And then when you do get there, you got to look in the mirror really closely and go, man, do I really want this one card more than that and that and that and that and that?
Right.
And and there isn't a right answer, but I do think there are only a few times that you can land the big card. Like
Hmm.
that you actually get the balance of the account up high enough
Right.
to actually pull it off.
Right.
So sometimes it's like every once in a while you got to do it, because if you don't do it, then you'll never have those few big cards. You'll just always long for them.
Correct. You know, I'm with you. It's like trying to fill a bathtub with the drain open, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sometimes you have to stop the drain up a little bit to make that happen. And I totally understand that. And I think I'm actually in the same kind of conundrum for the second half of the year as well, because one of the things that I actually got a lot more interested in at Strongsville is the earlier cards. Like
Yeah.
Strongsville, I was saying pre-war, but I'm talking now like pre T206, so before 1908 and earlier, right?
Yeah.
And that stuff's really interesting to me. And you know, the way I look at it is there's some pretty cool cards from some of those older sets that I would love to acquire. But you know, if I pick up like a Ramley Walter Johnson, then well, I guess that's 1909. But if I pick up a Ramley Walter Johnson or like a old judge like Ed Delahunty or something like that, um, that would put a significant dent in, you know, a potential goal of getting the 51 mantle. But at
Hmm.
the same time, if my what I realized when I started thinking about that is my plan is to stay in the hobby for a long time, right? So
Yeah.
if I do pick up some of these things right now that are more interesting to me, at some point I'll probably get to some level where I say, okay, all the interesting stuff is there and some of the bigger stuff is there. And at that point I can say, cool, maybe for this year, my goal is to buy two cards. One of them is a 51 Bowman Mantle, and the other one might be a 52 Tops Mantle. Who knows, right? So
Would you be able to do that, you think? Would you be able to go a whole year and only buy 2 cards?
it depends how far along I am. Right now, no, because there's so many new things that I'm always learning about. But I
Yeah.
think I'll get to a point where I say, I think I know what's out there. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of, at some point, hopefully, not a whole lot of new things that I'm just kind of discovering. And I could go, if I could say, look, I've always wanted a green T206 Cobb, but I've got a red one. Maybe I'll pick up one of the other ones. But let's say I go back and say, well, I've always wanted that green tie Cobb. Am I okay waiting a year to buy that so I could pick up like a Mantle rookie instead? Yeah, probably. But right now I get too excited about new things, right? Like I want to pick up some old judges. I want to pick up some, Goodwin champions cards. I want to pick up some Allen Ginter cards. I want to pick up, a Ramley card. So, I think I think that gets to a certain point, and maybe I'm wrong. I need to talk to some guys that have been in collecting a lot longer than me, where it's the excitement level comes down a little bit, right?
Mhm.
Right. Like I want to, I think right now, like I'm so new to it still that I get really excited all the time about things. I think there's a certain point where you're like, I've been doing this. I've been in the hobby for a long time. I've been learning about the hobby for a long time. I understand what's out there and become a little bit more strategic with what I'm buying versus getting excited and picking something up. Plus, to me, there's like a list of iconic cards. And as I acquire more of those iconic cards, then it makes it harder because I'm not going after the most expensive iconic cards. I'm going after the ones that are in my price range. So as I
Mhm.
acquire most of the ones that I want in my price range, then I'll probably be more willing to wait longer to pick up some of the bigger ones.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now let me ask you this: if there's someone newer to the hobby, so you're talking to, somebody who's just been collecting for a year, 2, 3 years, and they decide, hey, I think I'm going to do a player run. So
Okay.
I'm going to do a player run of like a Hank Aaron.
Okay.
Would you recommend to that person buy the rookie card and then go chronologically from rookie card to last card, or would you tell them start with the last card, the most usually one of the most affordable, and then work your way back up to the rookie card? How would you recommend, what would you recommend to a newer collector?
Before I would make the recommendation, I'd ask one question, and I would say, talk to me about your ability to be patient. And if they say I'm very impatient, then I would say, okay, save up, buy the rookie card, and then go from there. Because once you get the rookie card, they keep getting easier and easier, right? If patience is not an issue for you, then start with the last year card because that's easy. You could probably pick up 5, 6, 7, 8 cards like quickly because you could pick up, you know, regardless of the player, like Clemente or Aaron or Mays. Mantle's a little different, so let's exclude him from this. But like some of these other guys, they're Koufax, their last couple of years cards aren't that expensive,
Hmm.
in a reasonable grade, right? Like if you're willing to go to like a reasonable grade, you could go say, okay, cool, I'm going to pick up 4 cards, 5 cards, and get this thing rolling. But the problem is if you kind of blow the budget, not blow, but burn through the budget buying, the first say or the last say like 8 or 9 years of cards over the year, you might have to take a while to rebuild to start buying some of the earlier cards.
Hmm.
And then and if you're not patient, you don't want to get to like, okay, I've got the 55 Aaron, all the way through the 70, what's the 76 Aaron. I've got all those, but my run's not complete because I need the rookie card and I, the 54, and I don't have budget for that, and it's going to take me a year and a half to save up for it, right? So that's why I say if you're not patient, then I would say buy the most expensive card first. That way, it's easier to acquire the rest. Versus if you are patient, then start at the cheapest and go to the most expensive, because then you could acquire more of them and enjoy them over time.
Okay, so let me ask you this: are you patient?
No.
Okay, so based on your own advice, you are thinking that what you are you following your own advice based on the advice you just gave and the fact that you're admitting that you're not patient. When you look at this year, your run of cards, now it wasn't a player run,
Right.
but it was a run of 12 cards.
Hmm.
Did you buy the most expensive ones first and then work your way back to the least expensive ones? Or did you buy the least expensive ones and tend to work your way? Because what I see right now is, the screen we had up a minute ago, there were 5 of your top gold cards, and you had 2 of them, and you didn't have 3 of them. And the 3 that you didn't have are arguably the most expensive.
Yeah.
So you didn't buy the most expensive ones.
So I would say I went middle of the road, maybe I would say, right? So, you know, the the 41 play ball DiMaggio was a pretty expensive card. The 50 Bowman Jackie Robinson was a pretty expensive card. Um, but then yeah, I also picked up, the 57 Mantle wasn't cheap, but it wasn't as expensive as the other ones. And then a lot of the stuff that I picked up off the list, right, like the 40 play ball DiMaggio, the Burke Rosses, those were a little less expensive. But I would say I how do I say this? I sound like an asshole. The the 2 cards I have left, I already have budget for. So they're not necessarily a chase because I need to save up for them. They're a chase because I want to find the right ones to buy.
Right. No, I like that. I like
Yeah.
that. I don't think you sounded like an a-hole in the way you
Thank
said
you.
that. Now, let me let me ask you this, because I mean, the thing I like about this is we're documenting the process of 2 guys
Mhm.
that like cards, and by checking in like this, it's basically a documentary of what we think our plan is, and then where the trail takes us,
Mhm.
and our thought process along the way.
Yes.
So if this was December right now, which it obviously isn't, but we'll check back in December.
Mhm.
We're halfway through, and now that we're halfway through in December, when we check back and we say, okay, what's the plan for next year? Do you think the plan for next year will be a 12 card list again, one per month? Do you
No.
think the list will be a list of 30 cards, try to get as many as you can? Is the list going to be 5 cards and you're buying less a year? Is it going to what do you think next year's plan is going to be when we talk about it in December?
I don't think it'll be a list of 12. I don't think it'll be a list of 5. My guess is it'll be one of 2 things. It'll either be a list of like 30 or 40, 50 cards of saying, "Hey, look, I would love to pick up cards from this list." Or it could be the complete opposite of this year. And I could say, I created lists to help me stay focused, and I thought that would work. And it didn't keep me focused. So I'm not going to have a list. And I'm just going to go when I see cards, I'll pick them up. My guess is, knowing me, I'll probably end up doing like the list of 50, because if I have no guardrails, it'll probably get a little crazy. I don't want to get too crazy.
I mean, I think that we know ourselves, and I
Mhm.
think you know yourself, and I
Mhm.
think we know how we want to be, and then I think we also know how we are.
Yeah.
And those things are not always the same.
Right. I think of myself one way, but in reality, it's probably like, you know, a 180.
You do know that you're not patient, which is a good self-critique,
Thank you.
and being able to be aware of that and work within that. I mean, I actually think you've shown a lot of restraint this year so far.
It's funny you say that, because I had more self-control with my purchases this year than I've had since I got back into collecting. I got bigger cards this year, but I stayed focused on it, and I never, like, we talked about budgeting in a video we did probably 2-3 months ago, and we talked about the concept of borrowing from the non-card budget
Mm-hmm.
to get something, and then just paying the non-card budget back, right?
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
didn't do that at all this year. So I will say that the list has kept me from the list has kept me in control. It's kept me from making any stupid decisions about purchasing cards. But at the same time, it I've realized that my interests are a little too broad to like, I couldn't pick 12 cards and say these are the only cards I'd be interested in. I just realized that there's just more out there than I would be able to do that with. So I think what I'll probably do next year is have a larger list, and it'll be in Excel. So maybe I'll color code each one and be like, here's my list. Here are the cards that are green. These are the ones that I'm most interested in getting, but I won't be able to buy all the green ones because those will probably be all the most expensive ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then I'll color code them and say, okay, you know, here's the ones that I'm most interested in. Here are the ones that I would really like to have, but I would prefer the green ones first, and then have like color coded red saying these are cool cards I would love to have in my collection at some point, and if I find a good one at a reasonable price, maybe I'll pick it up, right? So I could color code it that way, and then as I go through the year, just kind of put guardrails up saying, okay, you bought 4 cards from the green list, stop buying green cards because now it's getting too expensive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's probably more of the, like, we'll call it the hybrid approach for 2025. What year? Yeah, 2025 versus this year, where it's a much more focused approach. But again, I did feel, even though I have this separate list of the stuff 6 months in, I've purchased, out of my list of 12, I purchased what, 3, 4, 5, 6, 13 cards that weren't on my list so I purchased more cards not on my list than I purchased on my list. But for me, that's actually pretty good.
All right, so we're rolling in on an hour. We've got about 7 minutes left in an hour, and that's kind of a good over under point. So I thought it'd be fun if we were to kind of reflect on the first 6 months
Mm-hmm.
and say, okay, of all the cards that each of us picked up in the first 6 months, what is the one that when we think of the first half of 2024 is the card that we get the most joy from thinking about, that we have it in the card?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say your one, from, not because of how you got it, not because you were hanging out with me or it was a gift or anything like that, but
Mm-hmm.
of those cards that you picked up the first half of the year, which one are you the most excited about?
So I have a tie. It's a two-way tie.
Should we
It's
allow it? I don't.
I think
All
so.
right, go
I think
ahead.
so. It's the 34 Gowdy Garrick, the green one,
Yeah,
and the 50 Bowman Jackie Robinson.
yeah. I kind of thought you would say those two. They're both absolutely beautiful cards.
Yeah, and I mean,
Um,
I love all those DiMaggios I bought too, but I would say the two that bring me the most, the two that, I'll put it this way, the 2 cards that I will go into the case and pull out and just look at, those 2 I've done that the most with,
okay.
and I've had
Uh,
them for like the shortest amount of time too. So
so is that maybe why?
no, I think I just really love both of those cards. I mean, I pull out the 41 DiMaggio all the time too to look at, but I think the most I think those two are definitely my favorite cards I've picked up so far this year. But when I get the 52 Topps Jackie Robinson, that will probably be the card I enjoy the most for the year.
Yeah.
How
So
about
that
you?
was well, okay, I'll answer it and then we'll talk about the next thing that you just kind of walked into is I would say for me it's probably the Leaf Spawn. That's I mean, I know he has like, bread cards that are worth more and he's got some cards that are more expensive and I do like obviously I like Warren Spawn. Um I know Mike Petty says I look like him. Um but I I I think that that's probably the card and there are a lot of reasons for it
Mm,
why that's probably the one. The actual copy itself I think is far better than the grade.
beautiful card for the grade. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a card that I didn't think it's kind of like finding a needle in a haystack to
Mhm.
find it in a low enough grade that's not crazy price wise that there's so many condition issues with that set. I have a lot of spawn cards,
Mhm.
and so I think that that's probably the one from the first half of the year. Now let me ask you the second half of the year, and I think you just answered it, but the second half of the year, when we do a full year recap, um, what's the card from the second half of the year that you haven't picked up yet that will be the card that you say that about for the second half?
So I would say the 52 Topps Jackie Robinson. But that's the thing though. I don't know that's my plan is to get that at the National, right? So that's in July. It's next month. God,
Hmm.
that's crazy. The National is next month. Um, but I don't know how things will go in the later part of the year. I mean, I don't expect to pick up anything that I mean, there's a few cards, not a lot. There's only a few cards that I like more than that 52 Topps Jackie Robinson. I don't expect to pick any of them up after I do the Jackie Robinson this year. So I would say my expectation is that will be my favorite card of the year.
Hmm.
What do you
Yeah,
think?
for me, I mean, I know everyone gives me grief about the Ernie Banks. The problem with the Ernie Banks situation is what I want and what I can afford are in different stratospheres. And so I keep on just going, well, I'll just hold out a little longer because of at some point, somehow, something will happen that will allow me to go into a stratosphere that I can't right now. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like I'm not always going to have. A kid in travel sports and a kid in college and a kid in private high school and
Yeah,
I'm
that,
like, I'm not always going to have all of this going on. Like at
yeah,
some point, in all these car registrations and gas and insurance.
insurance.
Oh, Jesus. So at some point, their money will be a little easier to come by, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Um,
I've got 7 years, and they're off the payroll. They'll be out of college.
yeah,
But I don't know. I take that back. 7 years away out of college. I hope they're off the payroll, but
right, right, exactly. So I don't think I just don't now. Could the banks fall in my lap this year? It could. I don't think it will though. Um, I think I'm gonna end up. I think it's gonna be the Barra.
okay.
I think the 48 Bowman Barra is gonna happen. Um, will it happen? I don't know, but it's worked its way into. I mean, it's always been in my top tier, but it's worked its way. It's like the desire for it has been intensifying, and I don't know why. I mean, everybody's been talking about his documentary. I
Mhm.
haven't even I haven't even sat and watched it yet.
You should. It's
I
so
know,
good.
I
It's
know,
so
I
good.
know. I just haven't. I will.
Mhm.
But so it's not like that's the reason why. It's just there's something about that card. And I had so many positive experiences with Yogi, like personally. Like,
Mhm.
interacting with him at card shows and at spring training, and I've talked about how we rode in the elevator with him, and he stayed across the hall from us in a hotel in Tampa,
Mhm.
and like I love this passion. I mean, there's just so much about him that I love, and I just have a feeling like that card's time is coming
Yeah.
after 30 years, 35, almost 35 years. It's almost time,
Mhm.
and it just feels that way. So it may not, and we'll have to pull these clips. We'll have to pull these clips at the end of the year, but that's my thought.
There you go.
All right,
That's cool.
well, we should probably wrap it up.
Yep.
Um,
So we stayed on topic the whole time.
this is like, I mean, it might be a first, right?
Yeah, it is. So I think mental note next one of these we need to pick a less we need this was too broad of a topic. So like anything talking baseball card kind of falls under this. We
Yeah,
need to get a little bit more specific next time because yeah, staying on topic's not really our thing.
like 53 tops, uh, high numbers will be the topic, and then like we
Yes.
won't even mention it then the whole episode.
Yeah, you know what we should do? Our topic should be modern baseball cards.
No.
And then we could just skip the topic and talk about something interesting.
Now, what percentage, like in all seriousness right now, what percentage of people that clicked on this video and listened to any of it do you think are still listening at the 1 hour and 1 minute mark?
Probably not a lot because we stayed on topic.
If we were bouncing around, we might be able to kind of keep them
Right.
pulled in.
Right. They're going to be like, guys, this is more of just a Darren and Greg conversation.
Yeah.
And that's fine because like we say, this is our like one of my favorite things to do.
Oh,
So
this is the best. This is absolutely the best.
what would be cool actually is if we posted this video and had like 0 views.
Well, I mean, I would still do it again next month.
I would too, of course.
So I will say this: if you are out there still listening, you have to remember, half of these when we do them are on my channel, Midlife Cards, and half of these when we post them are on Darren's channel, Return to Collecting. So in order to get all of them, if you only are subscribed to Darren's channel, then you're only going to hear half of them. And if you're only subscribed to my channel, you're only going to hear half of them. The only way to get all of them is to be subscribed for both of our channels.
That's right.
Now,
Subscribe to both.
it's not real. I wouldn't say that that's a hard plug to subscribe to both channels, but what it is it's just informing people of, it's not just one of us that does this. We rotate. And then we
Mhm.
also have, we're doing one a month with a guest. And so we're actually going to be doing, 2 a month, and we rotate who has the guest and who has just the two of us. So the only way to get all of them would be to be subscribed to both of us.
Yep.
All right. Any
All right,
final
guys.
parting shots?
No, I think this was a great conversation. Always enjoy it, and I hope the viewers enjoyed it as well. To kind of see how we're tracking towards the goals, and how Greg is really good at sticking to his goals, and how I am an
Oh, I'm
absolute
not. I didn't share the.
mess.
Wait a second. Wait a second. I didn't share the list of all the cards that aren't on my lists that I bought like you did. You only
See,
had like 10. I have way more than that. I have so many. I had like 4 or 5 cards this month that weren't on my list that I bought. So,
okay, so Greg and I both suck at sticking to lists,
yes.
but for our subscribers viewing pleasure, it allows us to show more stuff, right? Because if
Yes.
we stuck to our list, we'd have like 1 video, 2 videos a month. The way we do it now, we have interesting new stuff to show you much more often.
There
So
you go.
hope you
There
guys
you go.
enjoy.
It's
Hope you guys
really
enjoy us blowing our budgets so you guys can enjoy seeing what we show. I hope you guys enjoy it.
awesome. All right, dude.
All right, guys. We'll talk
See
to you
ya.
guys later. Thanks again, Greg.
Yeah, of course.